Hi, and welcome to Joining Us, celebrating 50 years of Bands of America. My name is Chuck Henson, and for 35 of those 50 years, I was the primary public address announcer for Bands of America's series of regional and the Grand National Marching Band Championships. Now, over the course of the next 25 episodes, I'm going to do my very best to bring you the people and stories that ultimately have created the excellence that is BOA.
I just was fascinated by this man's marketing ability and the idea that he was putting together a national organization.
Well, one was having hamburgers directly across the table from Dr. Ravelli. So I'm literally watching him eat a hamburger thinking, that's William D. Ravelli having a hamburger in front of me.
Back when Marching Bands of America began in 1975, I and my high school marching band were one of the first to participate.
10 years after the experience, I'm still hearing from kids who thought that was one of the coolest things they ever got to do.
I mean, when you went joining us, those kids went nuts right then. You could have read out of a phone book from that point on. You had them.
They're just going to blow the roof off the place. Like, I get chills thinking about it.
The rifles would spin rifles, then they would catch them and they would fall on the ground at the end of the tune.
Like a death drop.
Yeah.
What's in your blood? If you cut my arm, I'll bleed Bands of America, Music for All.
What Marching Bands of America started was innovative, so new, so exciting.
50 years, a half century? Are you kidding me?
Happy 50th anniversary to Bands of America.
So get your program, find a great seat here in our virtual stadium, and get ready to learn everything you ever wanted to know about Bands of America. Joining us from Avon and joining us from Bellbrook, Ohio. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Joining Us. I'm Chuck Henson. How's your week been? I hope it's been absolutely fantastic. I've got a great treat for you today, a guy that really one of the nicest human beings you will ever meet. You may know him from Two Dudes in a Dumpster. Please welcome Dean Westman to joining us. Hi, Dean.
I love that that's how people might know me.
Two Dudes in a Dumpster.
I'm going to take great pride in that. Keeping Avon High School safe for almost 20 years.
Listen, dude, I can remember... I think it was great. It was Grand Nationals. It was Grand Nationals probably a while, maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago. And you guys were out by the dumpster, and I'll let you explain what that is all about. Are you still doing it, by the way?
Yes, Chuck, we are.
Good.
All it is, my friend,
I'm driving traffic now to your thing.
Yeah, it's just we are assigned a duty, and in the spirit of Dr. Tim and of everything that Bands of America and Music for All stands for, we decided to make it a joyful experience. Little did we know that I'd be talking about it on a podcast with you on the 50th anniversary of BOA.
About Two Dudes in a Dumpster, yeah.
Two Dudes in a Dumpster.
One year, many years, 5 to 10 years ago, I was having lunch at one of the hotels and I'm watching you guys on my phone and I didn't realize it was a live thing you guys were doing. I literally called in and you put me on. I'm like, this is nuts.
Yeah, we have Bob Buckner once, Greg Bim, and we don't even know what we're doing when we do that. Like, there's people that, well, even with this podcast right here, getting Dean set up for this was like a 20-step process. So Matt and Dean out by a dumpster was just us with our cell phone trying to make that a joyful experience and a memorable experience, mostly for us, but then we tried to make it fun for the kids.
Well, dude, I think what you just said is what you try to do to every single person you meet. You have been a high school teacher. You have been an orchestra director. You have worked for the Bands of America facility. You've been there, done that, but you started in Chicago as a Cavalier kid, didn't you?
Yeah. I grew up in Park Ridge, which is right, O'Hare Airport, Rosemont. It's all right there. And I went to Maine South High School, which I wasn't from a competitive BOA program. As a matter of fact, Chuck, they just this past spring, my alma mater, for their first time ever, participated in a BOA event. They were at the National Concert Band Festival.
That's incredible.
What it was back then, when you were in band, you were in band. It wasn't like, oh, I'm in this band and the jazz, but when you're in all the bands, the marching band, the pep band, the concert band, you were in band. And it was an incredible experience. And yes, growing up right there, for anybody who knows their drum corps history, before the Rosemont Cavaliers were the Rosemont Cavaliers, they were the Park Ridge Cavaliers. And before that, the Chicago Cavs. So they've always been right in that area. And I did grow up of and around that. Didn't march until I was in college, but growing up, guys I grew up with were in the Cavalier Cadet Corps, which they had a feeder corps, and it was all right there. And that was kind of my side entrance in a lot of ways into the BOA world, was through that.
Is that what got you interested in just band in general, just as a young kid seeing Cavaliers?
It sure was. at the Park Ridge Memorial Day Parade, going back to I think about 1975, 1976, you would watch the Cavaliers and the Cavalier Cadet Corps, which were kids my age,
Right.
march by. And they rehearsed at South Park Field, about 4 blocks from my house. So it was all right there.
You had to have heard it from inside the house, I'm assuming.
Easily.
Yeah.
And we would go, our parents would go, we play at the playground there as kids while they would rehearse. I have some of my most vivid, so it was always there.
Yeah.
And then so playing a brass instrument, I would pick the tuba when I was in the 5th or 6th grade, and it was just real natural, but that was there. And then my high school band experience was fantastic because I didn't know band could even be, what ultimately what I learned. It was just where I made my friends.
Mm-hmm.
It was all about the family and the culture. And I think that's the thing from Maine South that has never left me. That feeling of doing it for the love of doing it, never for winning a trophy, because there was never a trophy for us to want to win. But I was completely aware in the mid 80s, Marion Catholic and Lake Park.
Essentially down the road from...
Yeah, they were right there. Marion was on the south side. Prospect was right there. So on any given year at Grand Nationals, 3 Chicagoland bands are going to be right in that back then. And that was the norm.
Right. Lake Park, Marion, Prospect. Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah. Off the top of my head.
And so it was right there. And then marching in the Cavaliers, that was back in the days where the summer symposium was at Whitewater. And so there was always a real natural synergy because a lot of the Cavalier personalities at the time were also huge personalities in the BOA world. Yep. Specifically, I think of Tim Salzman, Gordon Henderson, right? Steve Brubaker.
I worked with Tim Heck. He was on the guard staff at summer camp one year.
Yeah. And we were always doing stuff with the camp. So I was there when it was at Whitewater. I remember when it moved down to Bloomington, Illinois at Illinois State. And it was always kind of right there for me as part of my life. I have such strong memories of when you're a high school kid and a college music major. I went to the University of Illinois. So I'm getting a great experience there. But then branching outside of that, and I let's put it this way, Chuck, I didn't wait until I got out into the world to be the biggest wannabe, band geek, whatever. I was soaking up, I showed you before we started this podcast, I was digging through my old library and I found this old Ken Snook contemporary drill design book that my high school band director, Gordon McLean, gave me in 1988. Ken wrote it in 1981. And I think in many ways, it's still the gold standard from learning staging. There's still so many things. And I say this as as a designer with the blue coats. Everything he writes in that book in 1981, I think still applies in the year 2025. Yeah. So
is it signed?
No, it is by my high school band director who gifted it to me. And that means everything to me.
Nice. Very nice. Well, let me back up just a little bit because you mentioned your high school years and I had the same experience. The band room was the place that I wanted to be. Whether I was busy or not, if I needed a place to hang out, it was always going to be the band room because that's where my friends were, right? At what point did you decide that music education, when you get to college, that band directing or music ed is going to be your thing? Or was it even when you started?
No, I never wavered. And I think my oldest of my friends will tell you that. I think from probably about my freshman, sophomore year in high school, I knew I wanted to be my high school band director.
Wow. That's a real tribute.
Oh, he was the greatest. But I never wavered. I never did. The funny thing is I went at some point from being a band director to an orchestra director in my life, but it was never a doubt. And I think part of it was growing up in a program like that where everybody was in everything. I was in band, I was in choir, I was in orchestra, I was in the musical.
Yep.
And you just got such a passion for the people. And I bet you another thing we had in common, Chuck, is I could have never told you where my actual locker was at Maine South High School. Because everything lived in the band room.
Day one, that's where you put stuff, but never after that.
I think that was the draw. It was, when I went in to become a music education major, for me, that was the drug.
Yeah.
That idea of that tightly knit group of people that care about this one thing and doing it so well. And that can happen in an urban community or a rural community or
anywhere. Yeah.
That's what I think I learned at an early age. That I used to think Greg Bim's when I was in high school and I would see Marion Catholic, because my high school band, we were not big. They were I don't have the words for the juggernaut that program was in the 80s. And in my mind, every one of those kids was like 6'3" and had their French horns like handed to them by Dale Clevenger from the Chicago Symphony Orchestra.
100%.
Like,
and the school had golden columns going into the...
all of it.
Yeah.
And then really early in my, I don't even want to say career, because it was probably still when I was in college, but the Cavaliers would go and rehearse there. And then you'd realize really quick, oh, there is one reason and one reason only that this place is what this place is. I should say two reasons. Greg and Connie Bim.
Yeah.
Like, period.
Yeah.
And I think I learned at a young age, like, okay, so no matter where I go, the most important thing is, what are you going to do? What is the person on that podium going to do to serve that community and those kids? And like him and Connie, my goodness.
Yeah.
That's why we have to celebrate both those guys. Greg should get so much love on every one of these podcasts, but Connie Bim is it in my book.
One of the things we've learned so far, one of the things I've learned so far is that you're right. It doesn't take a big staff to put together a good program. Greg did it on his own forever. Sherry Manning did it on her own forever. Alfred Watkins did it on his own forever, because they have the drive and the determination to make excellence happen for their kids.
Yep.
And nothing's going to stand in that way. Nothing is going to stand in their way.
No.
I still have a great relationship with my high school band director as well, Gary Adams at Boone County High School. And he went on to teach at another school about, I don't know, my junior year or so. But, as adults, we're friends. We connect on Facebook. He even went, when my mother was toward the end of her life, he went over to her house, hadn't seen her in 30 years, went over to her house and helped her reset her iPad because she had lost her way in it. Those are the relationships we create. And those are the teachers that you want to cherish and remember forever,
Amen.
So you come out of college, it was your first gig, wasn't it, Stephen F. Austin, right?
No, I taught for 1 year out in the suburbs at Waubonsie Valley High School in Aurora.
Okay.
Back at the time, right when like Wayne's World was relevant and all that, and incredible experience and learned so much. And that brief chapter is really when my life changed in the most profound way, because that is when Bill Watson came into my life. Bill Watson had just become the first Texas high school band director to ever win Grand Nationals, Spring High School 1993.
Yep.
And then the 94 Cavalier season happened. And so that was just months after. And then the Cavaliers hired Bill Watson. And I began just an incredible friendship and relationship with him. And I have to tell you.
You were marching in the Corps in 94?
I was teaching the Corps. I aged out in 1992, and I taught there in 1993 while I was in my 5th year of college and finishing up. I'm one of those drum corps people that took the extra year.
Yeah. No, I was the same guy.
Yeah. And then in 1994, I was teaching there, and also in my first year, that year at Waubonsie. And that's when Bill Watson came on. So it was for the 95 DCI summer, the 94-95 school year. And I will just tell you, Chuck, the first time I heard a recording of the Spring High School honor band, the top band, his top concert band, he popped it in a tape deck in a car. I remember where we were. I remember where he said, and he played me that. And it was like a biblical Saul to Paul conversion. Like, I had never in my life heard a high school band play like that.
Yeah.
And I sat there like with my jaw on the floor, and I just looked at him and I said, can I move to Texas and learn from you? Period. That's how it happened. Like, it was in the moment. And this is a great story. And you have to put this in the context of the year it was. So this is a 94-95 school year. We don't have cell phones. Like, if you had a car phone, you were in a country club. Like, you were rich, right?
That's what I had when I did traffic in Chicago. That's why I had a bag phone that the station had given me. Yeah.
Right. So like, you had to get a job was different. It was different. Right? I mean, it was so different that I don't even know how to put it into words to like the younger students.
You literally put resumes in the mail back then.
And so I'm going to just give you the short version. Bill Watson gets me hooked up with a great interview down in the Fort Bend Independent School District in Sugar Land, which is ultimately where I spent 10 of the best years of my life. And my parents simultaneously were leaving to go on a cruise. So my parents are out of the country for a week. I have no money because I'm a first-year teacher. My grandfather buys me a flight. I get on a plane. I fly down to Houston, Texas. Bill Watson picks me up. I do all the interviews in one day. David Lambert, the performing arts director in Fort Bend, Rick Yancey, my amazing first boss, the principal who, when he hired me, an old coach, said, I don't want to be seeing no Mozart out on that football field now.
Oh my God, you're kidding me?
And I got on an airplane the same day at the end of the night, and I flew home. And the next day, I had to pick my mom and dad up at O'Hare to welcome them back from this cruise and then drop on them that Grandpa flew me to Houston and I accepted a job, and I'm moving to Houston in 2 months.
God. Well, they must have been happy for you, right?
Oh, my mom moved with me, helped make the move. They have always been my biggest supporters. But Bill just changed the trajectory of my life.
Yeah.
I guess the common advice I would give to any young, whether you're a music ed major coming out or one of these drum corps kids like me, or a young band or orchestra or just music educator, is the more of an open heart, mind kind of vibe you come at life with, the more the people who happen to be the best are going to take you in and nurture you. And the ones who don't, in my experience, they're the ones that aren't like the best anyways, the ones who have ego about it. Because my 100%, starting with Bill, is a great example, but I could go on and on and on. When I became a Texas band director, so much of that state took me in. But then beyond that state, the support and encouragement from Gary Markham.
Mm-hmm.
I could write a book on what Gary Markham did for me.
You should write a book.
Alfred Watkins, like I idolized that dude. And so when I was a young band director, there was just so many people in this BOA community of music educators that were kind of the one generation ahead of guys like me and Matt Harloff, right? But Matt and I actually talk about this a lot right now as we're like in our mid-50s, and kind of the station of life we're at is how much all those kind of people, and Bill to me is like my Mount Rushmore, right? And the way we want to, I get choked up.
Yeah.
The way we want to honor them, right?
Yeah.
Is to pay it forward, just the absolute best that we know how. Because they did that. They did that for us.
Let me tell you something, Dean. If I were to explain to someone who you are, I would say Dean Westman is one of the most gracious and gratitude-filled people I know. You come at everyone with a smile on your face and, quite frankly, a compliment coming out of your mouth every time. There's no time when you and I haven't gotten together where I walk away from that conversation going, wow, what an amazing human being. Now, when you got to Texas and now you're part of the Texas thing, you knew about, and Bands of America was established in Texas by then, right? 90, 95, 96, sure.
It was. And
but I got to think you were a little bit of a bridge to that as well.
Yeah, I think the original wave, my understanding down in Texas, where you obviously had Spring, Westfield, Philip Geiger.
Yeah.
Paul Warcello, I think, played a big role down in the Houston scene, as I remember it.
Yep. Klein.
Yeah, Klein Forrest, or Klein. He was one of the Kleins back then.
Can't believe I remember all this.
But like Brett Johnson, before it was the Woodlands, it was McCullough High School, as I remember it. And it had started, but in the early mid-90s, at least in my memory and in my mind, this is how I'm going to choose to remember it, Houston was the it place for the Texas bands. Now, that was being driven in large part by Spring and Westfield, and the OG bridge to Texas for the organization is Richard Crane. He's Brando and the Godfather. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But from a marching band standpoint, yeah, I was part of that kind of second wave. There's not a lot of Yankees, as my father-in-law calls. Frank Troika is a great example of a Yankee who came down there before me.
He's the best. Frank is so great.
Yeah. And so I was in that second wave of Yankees that came down to learn. That's why we came down.
Yeah.
It feels now like it's like I laugh so much with the drum corps kids, especially the music ed majors at the Blue Coats, because it's almost like, I'm graduating now, Texas, reporting for duty. It was not like back then. It was me having that experience with Bill, listening to his band play the Ingolfdahl Sinfonietta and Jupiter from the Planets and March Opus 99. And it was Bill believing in me and saying like, come down here and he was so cool. He put me with like the best guys, Rick Yancey, Robbie Casson. It wasn't, Dean, I'm going to put you in the most competitive whatever situation. It was, I'm going to put you where you need to be so you can learn.
Brilliant.
And then dude, like, don't ask me how, but 4 years later, I'm the youngest at the time, 5A. They didn't have 6A. There was only 5 classes. But just a few years later, I was the youngest 5A head director at Stephen F. Austin in the state.
Well, what did that program look like when you walked in the door? Did you walk in as the head director or an assistant?
No, I was the assistant for a year. It was a new school, actually.
Okay.
So they had only been around for a few years. You know, all the schools back then, they would open usually with 9th and 10th, or maybe 9, 10, 11.
Right, because they siphoned off from another school in the district, right?
Yeah, no, SFA was, as a program, a Ferrari. Like, you know, just because people maybe didn't know of the marching band on the national level, the players, the concert program there, I mean, I take zero credit for like the players at that school, Chuck, when I walked in, were insane. Some of the best that I have ever been around in my life. You had feeders down there back then that were like a feeder school that would be playing the two movements of La Fiesta Mexicana, you know, stuff like that. So the players were insane.
At a middle school, yeah.
And then, yeah, right place, right time.
Mm-hmm.
Right place, right time. So I was there for a year as the assistant and then got bumped up, you know, and simultaneously I just moved over in the drum corps world from being the caption head of the Cavaliers in 1995 to starting a tenure with the Santa Clara Vanguard.
I remember that, yeah.
And all that was kind of happening at the same time. And everything happens for a reason. And the SFA thing and that first shot to be a head band director, I will just tell you that if I ever on the outside looked like I was doing it with any element of swagger, on the inside... the nonstop trembling imposter syndrome that I still feel to this day as an orchestra director. Very humbling experience to be a head director at that time and that place there.
Congratulations. We are now 100% on guests saying imposter syndrome.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone feels that. Everyone feels as though whatever they're doing, that they're not the guy or not the woman or not the person who's good enough for it. Joining us. All right, let's take a moment for a quick break because I want to listen to some of your stories. Now, remember, if you've got a special Music for All or Bands of America memory or story, you can record it and be a part of this very 50th anniversary podcast. Just visit musicforall.org/podcasts to contribute your story.
Happy 50th anniversary to Music for All and Bands of America. This is Douglas Drosty, and I'm Director of Orchestral Studies at Baldwin-Wallace University Conservatory of Performing Arts. I've been involved with Music for All for 20 of the 50 years, first as an evaluator with the Music for All National Orchestra Festival, and then later on as the leader of the orchestra at the Summer Symposium. What's ironic is that even though I grew up the son of a college band director, my involvement with Music for All has all been through the orchestra side. I am a firm believer that Music for All is indeed for all, and that our offerings to our orchestra colleagues and choral colleagues is very important, and I will continue to be a champion for those efforts. So happy anniversary, Music for All. Here's to the next 50.
All right, now let's rejoin our conversation. What was the impetus to decide to bring your band to Bands of America in the first place?
Thank you for asking that, because if there's anything that I'm kind of proud of in that time in the mid to late 90s, I felt like we were trying to lead the charge of I wanted the Texas bands coming up there to be like the most normal thing, not a novelty. In the 90s, it was like, oh, a Texas band is coming, or it was a big deal. And now you just expect there's going to be a myriad of great Texas bands.
Right, and half of them are going to make finals, yeah.
Well, Dr. Tim, to become the best, surround yourself with the best.
Amen.
As again, Yankee who went down to Texas, and my eyes and ears were so opened by the quality of those programs that I wanted them up. That needs to be heard on the national stage. And we did not have these different streaming services that we use. Like none of those existed back then. We had VHS tapes. You had to see these groups. And a lot of times you had to go see them. And so when I was at SFA, that was obviously always when you grow up 15 minutes from where the Bands of America office is, and you want to be a band director and you grow up around this, you can understand why maybe bringing your band to Grand Nats is a life goal. But it also was more, I wanted to dip more than the Texas toe in the water to just keep showing these guys like it's only going to make your program better doing this. And there's nothing and when we went up at Stephen F. Austin, you want to know what the scariest thing was for me? It wasn't taking a band up. It was we didn't have a color guard.
I was just going to say that. I mean, you threw a wrench in the whole system when you got up there because all of a sudden there's buzz through the press box. Oh, this next group doesn't have a color guard. What are we going to do with that? You had the Angels dance team.
Yeah. And that was a district tradition. That was a tradition for all of the schools back then in Fort Bend. They did not have color guards. They had dance teams, and the dance teams would perform with the band for their UIL show.
And they were killer.
Right. And Betsy Heathcock will forever be my soul sister.
Yeah.
Because I would imagine with a lot of programs down in Texas that are in that kind of, I'm going to say, forced marriage where the dance team and the band director are together. Because most dance teams, you're working your stuff, your own thing. You come out and do the one number with the band at halftime and see you. To have to care as much as your drumline kid does, or your hornline kid does, or your flute player, or your drum major, even though in a lot of ways for the dance team, what's baked into the cake is that marching band is their other thing, their second thing. And the beauty of Betsy Heathcock is that she saw the possibility that I saw, which was, if we didn't look at this thing as this, well, here's this tradition that we all have to do.
Yeah.
But we look at this as this cool artistic opportunity that we get to do together. Like the Ballet for Martha show, to me, is my favorite example of that.
Absolutely.
It's like, create a show that's about that. Like it's ballet. So we're going to put 80 girls in that iconic Martha Graham dance, that gown, and lean into the fact that, yeah, we're not, but I don't want people to ever think like, I've been at Avon now for 20 years, like the premier.
Has it been 20 years? Wow.
Yeah, 19. I've lived there for over 20, and this is my 19th since founding the orchestra. But my point is, I am their biggest fan. So there was never this, I don't want a guard at SFA. It was, they didn't do that in that program. That was not in the tradition of the district. And so Betsy just helped, like we just reimagined what that thing could be. And we just made sure that we were never going to do a show. Like I was never going to do a show called like Weapons, or Flagworks. We're going to do a show that made sense. And the Ballet for Martha, which that idea was nothing more than Ralph Hardiman, my like beloved mentor, Ralph Hardiman, who was a designer with the band when we were down there and would just live with us and stay there. And we were watching 1987 Drum Corps International Finals like on tape. And he just looked at me and it was as simple as, why don't you just do that with Stephen F. Austin and the Angels? That was the design meeting, was that. And then we had dinner and then we figured the show out.
That's incredible. And you were so well received. But I also remember watching that program evolve over the next several times when you brought them. So the first time it was all that. The second time, maybe they had large red ribbons or something. And then maybe there was a hand flag or two. So you started to incorporate them a little bit.
And that mostly happened kind of after I left and when I came up to work. So when I left SFA for Bands of America.
Then the program began to evolve after you left.
Yeah, as far as that element, yeah, that did. And I want to say that several of those programs now have the dance team and also have a color guard. But even Vandergrift, national champion Vandergrift, when that school opened, at the time, that was a former drum corps student of mine, Jeremy Spicer.
That's right.
And we talked extensively, and I think he would tell you he used the Angels as kind of a framework, a blueprint when they were starting the Vandergrift program as well.
That's nice. How did you come to leave there and come up to physically work in Indianapolis at Bands of America? Did someone approach you, or how did that happen?
Yeah. As I had mentioned, I had really built a special relationship with several people, but Gary Markham was a biggie. And Gary really was there for a lot of us 24/7.
Yeah.
And that had nothing to do with marching band, really. It was just, he really was like a band director whisperer for bringing the best out of you, as was Alfred. Those Cobb guys were key back then.
Yeah.
And then Scott McCormick and I actually developed a really strong friendship as two, Chicago suburban guys. So the move up there happened, I couldn't tell you specifically month-wise, but it was the very first Rose Parade band, right?
Okay.
So we're around 04-ish,
Sure.
05.
Yeah.
I was on the staff for that first group, and Betsy was on that staff. I mean, there's a testament to...
That's right, because she brought some of the Angels up to be part of that first group.
There's like a 30-member dance team. They weren't all Angels, but like 20 of them were. I thought that said a lot, too, that here when they finally create this national honor band that wants to showcase kind of everything that BOA can be, that Scott wanted a dance team to be part of that, and Betsy was on that. And conversations between Scott and I had talked, Gary and I had talked, Tim Lotzenheiser had talked, because Gary and Tim were the only other two people with the organization that had ever held kind of an educational director role. Gary was that at one point. Dr. Tim kind of held a leadership role like that at one point. And Scott had been planting seeds like, we need an educator's voice back here within the four walls. And both Dr. Tim and Gary were really supportive of that. And Gary in particular felt, he's like, the timing is great where you can do some good with the organization. You can do some good with some of these band programs, around the country. So it was that school year where was those conversations. And ultimately, I would say the interview probably happened on that Rose Parade trip. I know I had a dinner with Scott and Chris McCormick and my wife at the Blue Bayou restaurant at Disneyland, where the Pirates of the Caribbean ride goes through.
Okay.
And I think we kind of locked it down a little bit there.
I love that.
And then finish out the school year, and it was impossible to walk away from that band program.
Yeah.
There was zero reason to leave it. It was more running towards, as a band director, as a young music educator, BOA and that mission had hit me so hard in the solar plexus. And I had felt like, let me give you an example. The first time we brought the band up, 2002, the Anatomy of Performance, Mind, Body, and Soul. That was our beautiful Brittany Honoré with the famous lift where they captured a picture of her. That was the image you saw on a poster when you went to the old Hoosier Dome for several years.
Gorgeous. Yeah.
We were at the same hotel as Lassiter, the year they won, 2002. And that was an intentional, I did everything I could to become the best, surround yourself with the best. And there's all the positively life-changing experiences we all talk about that happen inside those domes. The stuff that you've seen forever, that you have the best seat in the house for it, Chuck. But then there's the things when you're a director like me that you get to see when the camera is off.
Yeah.
And being at that Omni Severn Hotel with Lassiter in 2002, how would I put this? Seeing the miracle that the mission of that organization works in the hearts of kids, parents, parent volunteers, my principal who traveled with me. It again, one of those hard to put into words things. When I'm having these conversations with Dr. Tim and with Gary and with Scott, that's all I'm thinking about is nobody knows better than me what this place does for kids. Even those folks inside those four walls, there's no way. I kind of almost came there with the mindset of okay, I know what Cam Stasa has personally done for me as a band director. I need to get in there so I can start letting them know how much they mean to the people outside these four walls that they serve.
I think you achieved that as well. It's like what I said earlier, in meeting you and speaking with you, that level of heartfelt commitment to the mission is, we're not pretending here. It's real.
No.
And we're all living it every single day.
And I get almost defensive about anybody when they're critical of things like that. Nobody at that organization when I was there was ever doing anything. Nobody's sitting on a pile of coins like Scrooge McDuck in a Disney movie, right? It's
it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
And it takes money to be in those facilities and to provide those experiences. And when you are in there, I thought I knew. When you're a participating band director and you bring your band and it's everything I've talked about.
But you're still on the other side of the curtain at that point.
I really thought growing up around it. And then once you get in there, I have never, you got to say this as well, buddy. If you have worked harder, I want to know at what job. I've never worked harder in my life.
That's true.
At any other job. I've never been more physically and emotionally exhausted. And I've also never worked for anywhere that was more mission driven in my life, which is why you get up every day and do it again.
Yeah. My dad worked in a factory. He was high school educated, had, family to support. So you do what you got to do. And he said to me, if he said it to me once, he said it a million times and it would be tattooed on the side of my face. I don't care what you become when you grow up. Just make sure you love it because you have to do it more than anything. We spend more time at work than we do with our families. And Bands of America, it's a family, but it's a family of everybody who's on the same page. You were talking about never more exhausted. I can recall many, many years after Grand Nationals, when the show's over, that was us left to pack everything up and put everything away and get all the boxes loaded in the truck. And, it was tough. And I can recall tears from many, many people during those loadouts because they were just so exhausted.
Yeah, it's like the song in a chorus line, "What I Did for Love."
Very much.
Because that's what you really learn that back then. Nobody's driving around, Ferraris and living in mansions. And it was to be part of a mission-driven organization like that. On a personal level, it allowed me to move back up towards the Midwest and get back to my family and ultimately land in Avon. Because even though I wasn't coming, I had no idea I was going to start a string program at Avon. What I knew when we moved was we were going to move to, I wanted to move to a BOA community because I had a daughter that was going to go through the school. So we were either going to move to Carmel or Center Grove or Avon. And Harloff was just, we knew each other growing up through drum corps. So I picked Avon and drove downtown, worked at BOA.
Tell me about your role at Bands of America, what you day-to-day did for the organization.
Well, a lot of the grunt work we were just talking about, everybody was in it. I mean,
we all did a lot of the grunt work. I mean, I did a lot of marketing. I sent out press releases,
Yeah, but some of the stuff that was really exciting, I had a big hand in the summer symposium, working closely with, the sponsors, with Gary Markham, the National Concert Band Festival. And what was cool is at the time that I was coming in was also right when we were starting the string element, the orchestral element. And it was also right when Bands of America was they were Bands of America for my first maybe not even year there. And then it was becoming, the whole Music for All thing was all. So I think that was another big reason Scott wanted a music educated voice, is what was on the horizon and what was happening.
Of course.
So a lot of things. So symposium, but the getting the string initiative was big and getting that up and running. What was cool about that, I talked about Greg and Connie Bim. Another Mount Rushmore of dynamic duos was Richard and Gail Crane.
Of course.
And they ran that National Concert Band Festival. So when we were starting the Orchestra America National Festival element, Adriana, my wife of almost 29 years, and we became the shadow of Richard and Gail. What a privilege that is. So for multiple years in a row at the summer symposium, we would spend 2 days and Adriana would help Mrs. Crane organize all the entries for the groups that had submitted for the National Concert Band Festival or the National Percussion or the Orchestra Festival. And then we would bring in, these icons who would come and listen to it on any given year. It could be Gary Green and Larry Livingston and whoever it was.
Yep.
And then they would listen to the recordings for 2 days straight. And we would just sit there quietly in the front of the auditorium organizing stuff. And I'll just never forget it. Mrs. Crane would sit there and read her Bible and then get up and do things. And it was so awesome. And we'd have 3 meals a day with them for 2 days straight. And we would just be locked in an auditorium at Illinois State University. And so anything that had to do with the strings consumed my life as we were getting that up and running.
Is that how you were able to make the transition to being a string teacher at Avon? Just that association?
It didn't hurt at all. When I was at Stephen F. Austin, I did co-conduct the kind of the model in Texas for groups that have orchestra programs. Is that it's usually is what Matt Harloff and I do. It's a collaboration usually between the orchestra director and the head band director. So even at Avon, last year, we played the famous Phantom Regiment Shostakovich Fire of Eternal Glory. Well, I'm having Matt Harloff conduct that. That's the Coachella guy. So I did get to conduct orchestra and I had experience, but I had a string person, Carolyn Vandiver, with me at all times when I was there. So getting into the string part of Music for All really was good for me, just to learn everything I learned, because we were building a program and building a roster of an honor ensemble, from scratch. And then in the fall, I was, so symposium was big in the summer and the festival was big for me in the spring. And then in the fall, if I wasn't out on the road being at different regionals every weekend, just like the rest of us were, we also had some really cool initiatives that MFA still has to this day with the Indianapolis Public Schools.
Yes. Yeah, that's where I was going with that. Okay.
Yeah, I tried to spend as much time with those guys as I could, mostly because they're phenomenal human beings, great kids, just like everywhere else. Great kids are great kids.
Yeah. Alfred tells that story of getting his first gig really when he was still a student teacher at an inner city Atlanta school that was just in really, really rough shape. And he is the benchmark proof of it's the person standing in front of the kids that's going to make all the difference. It's not about resources. It's not as much.
Yeah.
I mean, money is a part of it, of course. But, this school had no money. And he said within 6 years, they were playing grade 6 literature.
Oh, I love that MFA has always again, there's the things we see. Eric Martin used to talk about this a lot. There's obviously the event at the Big Dome, but then there's these other initiatives that are so important and mean so much. And the IPS stuff is a great example. And that's also, living here at the time, I was able to build friendships with the local guys, right? With Matt James and Randy Greenwell, who I ended up going into the Hall of Fame with, and with Richard and with Jay Webb and my neighbors and all that. So as far as like the IPS thing, the second he would get any element of new uniform, Jay Webb would donate the uniforms to an IPS school that wanted a new look or percussion. And Richard the same.
I know. So, at Carmel. Yeah, he did all that too. Yeah,
special group. But we could do an entire different podcast, and I could spend hours talking about the people inside of that place and what they do for kids that's not seen. And the fact that I was there at a time when the organization had just moved from the Chicagoland area down to Indianapolis, right? Because I think that was probably when you were.
I moved from Chicago to Indy with the organization. Yeah.
And so, Cam, Deb, Eric, Scott, I mean, it felt small. In a good way.
Small.
You came in, it was like, my office was right next to Cam, and we are the two loudest people in the world. And I
take offense at that. I am very loud.
Oh, no. And I know, I remember, Natalie Mintz, who's just brilliant.
So sweet.
And she would so politely, you would hear her softly shutting Cam's door. And I knew now she's going to walk over and softly shut my door. Yeah. And we would also have days where Cam and I would come in, the ones you're talking about, where you're literally going on 2 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
And you sit there and you just don't have to say a word. Just look at each other. The bond I have with those people is a really, really special one. Like my relationship with Cam and Deb is really special. Yeah.
Well, it's a shared experience. We went through the trenches together.
Yeah.
And because you have a unique perspective about what it's like inside and outside and the impact that Music for All has on people, you see it differently than other people do, with more knowledge, of course.
It's the reason the Avon Orchestra is the Avon Orchestra.
Yeah.
It went by like that. I mean, I've been gone from MFA now about, I'm starting my 19th year at Avon. So I've been gone from BOA that long. But 19 years later, the principles that I learned from that place, we have a mission statement for the Avon Orchestra that the kids created. But what mission statement do you think I put up on the screen when they were doing it? So we talk about serving our community and life-changing experiences.
Yeah. I
try to be the poster child for the mission of the organization. I really do, because I believe in it that much. It just sticks with me. So it made it. So I'm sitting in my office, if I can just jump to this, because I'm sitting in my office at Music for All, and this would have been in the spring of 2007. And I'd be lying to you if I didn't tell you that I uber missed being that kind of year and a half, not being, I miss being in a classroom with kids.
Of course.
And I get this call from Maggie Horniman at Avon. At the time, she was like the superintendent of human resources. She ended up becoming my superintendent. If any BOA historians know that name, Horniman, Steve Horniman.
That's right.
Her husband was the longtime band director at Conant High School, going back to the Marching Bands of America days. Had a drill writer named Steve Brubaker. Marie Chapinski did his color guard.
Nobody knows those names you just mentioned. Nobody knows who those people are.
I believe Dr. Tim stood up at their wedding. But she called me, and so I'm living in Avon, and I'm working downtown, and I love it there, and I love those people. But Maggie calls me and says, hey, we are thinking of starting an orchestra program here in Avon, Indiana. I just feel like to truly be a comprehensive high school, we got to have a string program. We have this band program, but we don't. Do you know of anybody that might be interested? And that was that.
Oh, wow.
And I'm a tuba player from Parkway. I'm a contra bugle player, right? And so that summer, we went through that process of exiting, BOA, and I was going to take that position. My daughter at the time was just in grade school. We started taking violin lessons with a middle school director up in Carmel, both of us.
I was going to say, we meaning you and your daughter.
Yeah, my daughter and me. I wanted to go through what a kid goes through to learn so that when I'm starting a program, I have a clue. So I play violin like a beginner.
Well, how are you going to answer questions if you don't know how to play the instrument, right? I mean...
Yeah. And then the fall of 2007 started the Avon Orchestra program with 38 sixth grade beginners. And now we're just finished our third week of school, where we now serve over 1,000 string players, grades 6 through 12.
Wow.
At the high school, I believe we're the largest string program in the state. We have over 300 string players in 6 orchestras. 3 full-time orchestra directors in the high school and a brand new state-of-the-art facility. And we have 6 full-time orchestra directors here, in the corporation. And we're having a really good time doing it too.
Did you hear what that says about you? Holy cow.
I almost don't even want to, but that's not how I mean it. Because what I wanted to say about is like, you got to understand, I'm sitting there. So while I'm having these conversations in March with Maggie Horniman, and I'm deciding, like, do I want to start this thing? Because if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. And I don't know what I'm doing also. So like, not just imposter syndrome, but like, come on.
Actual don't know. Yeah.
Can we actually admit, like, at that point, I am an imposter? And so here's why I give MFA like so much credit for, and this is where I got to give Larry Livingston. For those who don't know Larry Livingston, just an icon in the music ed world, longtime dean at the Thornton School of Music at the USC in LA, orchestral conductor galore, used to be at Interlock and down at Rice.
He evaluates at the National Concert Band Festival.
He was the music director of the Honor Orchestra of America, and I specifically fought to make him that because to me, in many ways, he is that bridge between our world and school music and like the world of music. He served on Quincy Jones' board.
Yeah.
So I am at this kind of like, am I going to go back into teaching? If I do, am I going to, oh my gosh, I'm going to start a string program. I don't know what I'm doing. And this is all while the Music for All National Festival is going on. And Larry Livingston, I couldn't make this up if I tried. Larry Livingston is rehearsing the Enigma variations with the Honor Orchestra of America. And they're having a rehearsal at the Hilbert Circle Theater. And this is one of the coolest things when I was there is you get to be like in these empty halls for really cool experiences, whether it's the Honor Band of America. I know you had that as well.
Yeah.
Like an Honor Band of America sound check is about the coolest thing in the world. And so I'm in this rehearsal and I'm sitting on those seats that are above the stage in a hall where if the conductor looks up, they can see you, right? The kind of the stage terrace seats. And I'm really having like this kind of career, not crisis, but like, what am I going to do? It's a heavy moment. And they're rehearsing the Nimrod. Ya-do-dee-da. And I sit there and I'm in my quiet little corner and I kind of make the decision, like, I think I'm going to do this. I'm going to go start a string program, even though I have no clue what I'm going to do it. And I just started crying. And I don't know why, but I started crying. And they're playing. It's an amazing.
Sure, everything that's happening in the room is feeding that to you.
Thank you. And so it finishes. And again, I'm off by myself. And I lift my head up and I wipe my eyes and I look down at the stage. And Larry Livingston is looking up at me. And he just looked at me. And in front of that entire orchestra, he just said, "Now you know."
Wow.
And I went and became an orchestra director.
Really?
Yeah, no. MFA and Larry Livingston are the reason that I became an orchestra director. And any success that I've had there and the growth, it started with them. And so to be sitting there, you're sitting in Hilbert like me, you're having this pivotal emotional moment where I'm thinking like, oh my gosh, am I about to walk away from this thing that I believe in so much, the mission of this place, to now go start a string program in Avon, Indiana. I'm a tuba player. I don't know what I'm doing, but like, you can't help but be around somebody like Larry Livingston and not be, I'd had pretty profound experiences with orchestras, even at SFA, but to watch Larry Livingston rehearse that Honor Orchestra of America. So yeah, I sit there, I'm crying, I put my head up and they release the note and I'm figuring he's going to turn to them and give them feedback on, on that run or whatever. And he's staring straight up at where I'm sitting. And he just looks at me as if he was inside my mind, inside my soul. And he just looked at me, he said, "Well, now you know."
Wow.
Yeah.
That's an incredibly karmic moment.
And I went down and I gave him a hug and we talked about it. And I mean, he's been there with me every step of the way for the Avon journey. I'll tell you that much.
Dean, had you discussed your conundrum with him prior to that moment?
Not in any level of detail that he would have known. But again, if you know Larry, like, okay, I'd say this about my grandma Ruthie, but I'm going to say this about Larry Livingston because it was her gift. If there's anything I try to get from her, it was her gift. But this is why Larry Livingston is a life changer. There could be 5 million of the most important people in the world in a room. But if he's locked in on you because you need something like, because he's locked in on you in that moment, then that's what that is.
Yeah.
He will never be that person at Midwest that's shaking your hand and then also kind of looking over your shoulder to see who's next. He is 1,000,000,000% present in you and investing in you and what you have to do. And that's just one of the many gifts that like BOA and MFA give. And that's the common thread through my entire story, Chuck. Every few steps along my journey, some guardian angel from this incredible organization has been there.
I feel the same way.
Right? And sometimes that's been somebody inside those four walls. And then sometimes it's been these other people that we've talked about. But there's always been that. There's a part of me every day that I have something go down at work, that some conundrum as an arts leader. I want to pick up the phone and call Gary Markham and ask him, how do I deal with this? How do I solve this? So the gift of the organization is the people.
You literally just described that positively life-changing experience.
Yeah.
I mean, in that moment, I feel the same way. Doors have opened when they were supposed to, and I've been smart enough to walk through them. And it sounds like you have been as well.
Yeah. And I've had so many people along the way.
Yeah.
And, even in these last 19 years, whether it's with the orchestra program at Avon or supporting the marching black and gold, as they've become a powerhouse these last several years, it's the organization is just there for you and for your kids. They do provide those positively life-changing experiences. They deliver.
Yeah. I do want to talk a little bit about Avon, and because, obviously their reputation precedes them, but tell me about the atmosphere in Indianapolis, because people, they say all the time, the Texas bands and Indianapolis bands, those are the two places where things are happening right now in music education. Is there a cooperative environment between the big Indianapolis schools?
I think so. I think extremely. I noticed that right when I got here. Even when I got here working for BOA, you sensed a real camaraderie amongst the folks from Indy. And I think there's a pride, too, that this whole thing goes down in our backyard.
Yeah.
We like being in the town where DCI happens and where BOA happens and within the programs because the way it works here. So like when I was a Texas band director, you have the 8-hour rule. For those who don't know what that is, there's limitations on how many hours you practice per week. And in a lot of programs, the districts will even say you can only attend X amount of competitions per fall. When I was at Stephen F. Austin, we usually could do 3 in the area, UIL. And then if we went to Grand Nats, I'd have to get board approval for that, obviously. The culture more in Indiana in the north is every Saturday is something.
You're on the road essentially you've got something every weekend. Yeah.
Every Saturday. And what's cool, and this kind of speaks to the camaraderie, is everybody tries to go to everybody else's stuff.
Good.
To support them. And the Avon thing is unique in a few ways in that, I say this when I talk with band directors from other places that they want to build these teams of, I want this drill writer and this arranger and this. It's like, well, Avon really is a bunch of people who happen to be in pageantry moved there.
Yeah.
And that's a testament to Jay Webb and Matt Harloff, Daniel Wiles, Richard Hinshaw. These guys that they created a community that it really was a bunch of folks that are like, well, if we're going to just all raise our kids here, let's make this thing the coolest thing we can possibly make it. And it really is that.
Yeah.
It's not to like win trophies or dominate or anything. It was more like.
No, and it's never been about that.
It's for our kids.
Yeah. Where do the kids in Avon, if you're deemed the Grand National Champion, where do the kids in Avon find their inspiration? How do they achieve something that's next level for them? If everyone else is looking at them as the gold standard, how do they find their inspiration?
Well, that is a great question. I don't know if we give them the opportunity to necessarily reflect on that. We tend to be so focused on the next. Like, I'm going to give you the way that I personally kind of view competition and at least pushing kids to whatever the next thing is. I'm not going to go like, this is the Avon way, but I'm going to tell you, this is what Greg Bim taught me when I was in Texas. And this is how I think we tend to view it at Avon. When I was a young Texas band director, I think it was probably that first time I went to Grand Nats and was in the throes of, every element of anxiety you can imagine. Greg Bim looked at me and said, remember, don't look at this as a ladder. Look at it like a tree. And that's how we approach it. What I mean by that is we don't look at it at Avon like, well, we're on this rung of the ladder this year. And so if we are one rung below that competitively the next year, we didn't achieve that or rung, which is you have to talk a lot with the kids. I mean, we've been in the top 3 for about the last 18 years or so at Grand Nationals. But the focus we try to make is think about all these years as a tree. There's different branches that are different heights and they all are in different places, but they're all unique and they all have beauty and they all have meaning. And Greg really taught me that if you look at this thing like a ladder, that you're just trying to either climb, oh, you fell down 5 rungs.
Right. You're either up or down. Yeah.
He just said it will. And when somebody like that back then says that to you, I mean, that's John Wooden giving a young basketball coach advice.
Yeah, it is.
So I really think the way we try to approach it at Avon is that, which is any other year is any other year. And we certainly don't talk about who's looking at them. That's flattering if that is happening. But I think we really try to just put more of the focus on each year and what is this branch of this tree going to do that's going to make it special and unique and have meaning. And then it might be really high up on the tree or middle on the tree. I tend to not care.
But success isn't measured by placement. Success is measured by achievement, right?
Yeah, I think so many of our trophies happen not on a Saturday. If you take any band experience, and I did this one year, they had me write an article for BOA about this, but if you just do the math, if you add up the minutes that a kid spends doing this, everything involved with it, practice, personal practice, getting to practice, like everything, and then you add to that the 7 minutes and 48 seconds of their show or however long a show is these days.
Yeah.
What you realize quickly is, I know it's an important part of it, but like less than like 0.5% of the total experience is actually spent competing.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Over 99.5% of the experience is everything else. And with a program like Avon, where they do rehearse a lot, they put in a lot of hours, and a lot of these programs up here, they'll go to 2 events in a day show and an evening show.
I've heard that.
And so philosophically, I think if you were to make it for Carmel, any of these programs about chasing that eagle, it would be maddening, especially because it is in our backyard and there's the expectation that we do go every year. Because that's a difference that should be noted. Like when I was a Texas band director who was going to be a Grand Nats director, that still for me meant at a best case scenario every 3 years, realistically.
Yeah. Alfred Watkins told me Lassiter never defended a championship, ever.
Right.
Just wasn't the pressure he wanted to put on his kids, ever.
But when you live here, and it's not even a competitive pressure expectation, it's like, well, to perform on that stage in that venue, so all the local programs, that is just the final show of the season.
Well, right. You're not bringing a band from Texas. It's not costing you thousands and thousands of dollars to make that trip.
And so you do have to, I'm really glad we're talking about this specifically, because I do think when you are a band from here, you have to approach it a little bit different and with a mindset that kind of understands that, we live this place year round. And how do I make it at Avon? I'll give you a great example. So when I would bring my band up from SFA, we'd miss school for 3 or 4 days. We'd be doing conga lines around Pan Am Plaza. It was fun. Now, fast forward to where I'm at Avon, and the kids are performing at 11:15 on a Thursday night, and then they get on a school bus, and then they're in like AP Calc the next morning at 7:45 in the morning.
That's right. That's
more the reality. So we finally, at the very least, like now, Friday morning is a half-day field trip for the Avon kids. They'll perform 39. But we had to sit and explain that to kind of the community and the administration, who's very supportive. But just to say, like, do you get why this is more routine for our kids and why it's this life-changing experience for the Texas kids? And now, these last few years, our kids get on buses Friday morning. They go down. They are standing O's for that entire awesome Friday AM block. You have the whole Avon marching black and gold. And then I go down to Texas and I tell all the bands that are coming, because I want them to know we're going to be there rooting for you. Like when Leander came this last year, I went down and I rehearsed Leander, and I just said, you better believe that Avon is going to be sitting there cheering our hearts out for you guys. And so we just try to put we want to be the best Avon we can be. And the funny thing about the marching black and gold is I was uber involved with the design, like in those early years. And now as the orchestra program has grown, I find myself just being their biggest fan. I'm going to the Avon Community Day performance where they unveil their show. And when you are around those personalities, both the kids and those adults. These last several years, I find myself being like chief fan and supporter and just cheering for them nonstop. So I want to take zero credit for the awesomeness that is going on there. I am fan number one.
You exude awesomeness, my friend. I think that's a good place to leave it. Dean, thank you so very much for doing this today. First of all, it's an honor to know you and to be your friend. But the impact that you have on our activity will be felt for a lifetime for your kids. And thank you. I appreciate you. Thanks for being part of BOA history and joining us today.
Thank you. You are a Hall of Famer in every sense of the word.
Hey, thanks for listening to the Joining Us podcast. We are celebrating 50 years of Music for All and Bands of America. Do you have your own story or memory to share? Well, I want to hear it. You can record your own story by visiting musicforall.org/podcasts. We may just include your voice in a future episode. Hey, thanks to Yamaha, our national presenting sponsor, and don't forget to make sure you're subscribed to the Music for All Podcast Network, wherever you get your podcasts. I want to thank Ben and Laura from the team at Music for All for making this happen and lining up all of our guests. And of course, the way it sounds, that's the magic of our executive producer, Patrick Keller. I'm Chuck Henson. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next week on Joining Us. Joining us from Avon, Indiana.